I'm Anthony O'Donnell, editor of Insurance Innovation Reporter, and this is Life Accelerated, a podcast for life insurers who want to achieve digital transformation. Brian, it's great to be with you today. Could you tell us a little bit about your responsibilities as Senior Vice President of Technology Modernization? Sounds like a big job at a major life insurance company such as Mutual of Omaha.
Yeah, so I've been in that role for a couple of years now as the bridge between business unit strategy and IT strategy. So ideally, they'd be the same. And one of the things we've talked a few things about is like if we were a startup, you wouldn't have an IT department, right? They're just one and the same. Being a 100-year-old company, as you noted, is one that we still think about them as maybe two separate things. So I kind of came from the business side, so I understand maybe where the insurance industry has been, kind of where they're heading, and I'm relatively technologically adept. And so, again, over the last couple of years, I've been trying to learn more about IT and how to make some strategic choices that will help both the business and IT make everybody's life simpler down the line. As Mutual of Omaha, right, we're a policy owner-owned company. So folks that buy our policies are the folks that own us. We don't have shareholders. So theoretically, we should all be aligned between the folks that work here at Mutual of Omaha on the business side, the folks that work here on the IT side, and the customers in making the best choice for the long term for them. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to do again over the last couple of years is kind of get all those folks swimming in the right direction. One of the elements, I guess, of the things that we've been working on, right, is like how do we go from the mainframe systems that we've been operating on since literally the 1970s into the new digital environment and trying to set up a new platform. And what does that look like if it's cloud-based, API connected? And are there players in the insurtech market that would allow us to do that? So that's probably been one of the bigger initiatives and bigger wins that I've been working on over the last couple of years.
And this is your next generation digital platform initiative?
Yeah, correct. That's exactly the thing that we've again been trying to work on, and one of the things that we're pushing even further over the next couple of years.
So how can we understand your job and your work in the context of where the life insurance industry is today? Where does it need to get given the available technology and current? And what is current? Excuse me. Let me start that again. And how do you think of addressing current consumer demand? I would imagine even as a mutual company, that's as much of an issue as it would be for a company with shareholders. Oh
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, where we've been as an industry as a whole, right? We are a 100-plus-year-old industry that, for better or for worse, and I suppose it worked for a while, could dictate the customer experience because they needed it. And they didn't have another alternative. So if we needed to take 2 weeks or a month or even longer to make a risk decision of, hey, are we going to approve this person or not? We could do that because, again, the customer is going to get that same experience in other places. So as you might have heard or expected over the last few years, right, things have greatly changed, both from a customer experience on insurance through COVID and even through the day-to-day life of customers. No longer can a customer is expected to wait 30 days or 45 days. So really it is about how do we accelerate the things that we've done? How do we make that easier for the customer? You have industries and that have completely shifted, again, that used to work probably similar to how we did in insurance of, yeah, where else are you going to go? Sorry, the experience isn't great. You need to bounce around these 3 different departments to get the thing done that you want to get done as a customer, to, oh, no, I can do that instantly and I can do that on my phone, and I don't actually have to talk to anybody at all if I don't want to. And that's the challenge that I think us at Mutual of Omaha and many others are facing, whether or not you're a stock company or a mutual company. That's the real thing that I think most of the insurtech companies and frankly most of the banks probably dealt with maybe a few years ago as well. You've seen some. I try and think about financial services broadly, and banking is one that is a couple of years ahead of the insurance industry and how they've enabled that customer experience, customers to be able to do what they want to, what they need to, without much interaction from the company, or as much interaction from the company as they want. Like customer wants to call us, great, we'd be happy to talk to you. But we're trying to get to the place where it's like, hey, if you want to do it yourself, here's all the things that you could possibly need, and the education around either making that decision of buying or making that change to whoever your beneficiary is, or whatever it is that they want to do.
Brian, I can't speak today. So, Brian, Mutual of Omaha is a company that's over a century old, and I wonder how you reconcile the company's historical market position and its mission with the technological modernization, with the technology modernization task that you have.
Yeah, Mutual of Omaha has historically been a mass market company. We have primarily served folks in the middle class. You've got this great logo behind me, the lion head. We're well known for reaching all sorts of Americans through the Wild Kingdom television show in the 70s and 80s. So anytime you do a customer interview, it takes about, I think the over-under is about 12 minutes for when they remember, oh yeah, I used to grow up watching Wild Kingdom. We'd get a TV dinner, we'd sit down in front of the TV, we'd watch Wild Kingdom, and then follow that up with the Disney movie of the week. And that comes up so often. Again, it's about every 12 minutes for a customer interview. So we're well known for reaching that kind of group, the middle America, the mass market. We have a few products for high net worth individuals, but that's not usually who we're after. We're not trying to sell complicated investment products. It's usually, hey, this is the risk that you have as a customer. Here's how we would recommend you cover it. Here's a few riders, things that you might consider that might help you and even enhance that coverage. But for the most part, we're making this promise, and we're going to deliver on that promise. So to balance that with technology modernization, we are, again, trying to find ways to reach those customers. So in the past, it was a television show. We've done a fair amount of direct mailing. We are launching Wild Kingdom again, although instead of on broadcast television, it's going to be on streaming services. So we've got several of ways of which we are going to try and reach that exact same customer base. So technology modernization, to your point, is really all about how do we better connect with those customers who we know resonate with the Mutual of Omaha brand, who we know how to serve, who we've been serving for the last 100+ years. So it's the same old story written in a 21st century way.
Right. So technology actually helps you to execute your perennial mission.
Yeah, the mission has not changed. We help families protect what they care about and achieve their financial goals. That's short and sweet. That's exactly what we're trying to do at Mutual of Omaha, and technology is just a way of helping us do that. So I think our CEO has said, trying to contrast the phrase every company is a technology company with, we're an insurance company that uses technology to provide that insurance. So technology is going to be core to how we do that efficiently, how we do that effectively, and again, how we do that nearly instantly with the customer base that we have, right? You've got customers that have that everyday experience of, I can do what I want, and that gets done in 3 minutes, 5 minutes on my phone. Like most other insurance companies, we're still struggling with how do we make that happen, because we've built around batch processes overnight. Again, we've centered around our processes and not necessarily around the customer experience. Thankfully, we've flipped that, and customer experience is very, very high on our list of things to work on over the next few years.
Well, let's make it all concrete then and talk about some of the other priorities that Mutual of Omaha has to improve the customer experience and to modernize in general.
Sure. So we've got each of our business units. We have 5 business units. They're all focused on the same thing. How do I grow? How do I achieve the profit targets that have been assigned, or whatever that we should be expecting from the risk that we're taking on within each of those business units? So the growth then, right, comes from how do I either enable our distributors who are still key to our strategy, whether they are our own advisory group, whether they're independent distributors, or whether they're our direct-to-consumer marketing. How do I enable them, again, to be efficient, effective, find the folks that need the products that we have, that have that need to protect what they care about or achieve their financial goals, and make them as productive as they can, again, that distribution channel, to be able to get that coverage in place for those families. So that's one, right? You've got the growth target out there. On the technology side, it's how do we build in such a way that change is a feature and not a bug. So again, I'll use basic thoughts about project management that have kind of come and gone with the way that we're working now. So in the past, it was let's build a requirements document. Let's have a big meeting about that requirements document. And then if you want to change the requirements at any point before we deliver this thing all at once, that's going to be expensive and it's going to drag out the timeline. So we've at least said, well, that worked for a while. One of the things we're moving towards is a more agile way of working, but also an agile way of thinking. So I've got some indications that this is probably the way that we're going to head. Let's start moving in that direction. There's at least some basic things that I want to do, and then we'll plan on changing the plan over time. So part of that is the technology architecture that we're working on. How do I structure this in a way that it's, again, API connected so I can more easily plug and play capabilities along the way, or I can more easily update components if I've got internal teams working on it without completely blowing up the entire process. So, for example, if I want to make a change to the policy output, I don't have to go back to maybe the overall administration system. I can just make the change. If I want to change the logo, for example, like we did a couple years ago, I can make the change in the policy output rather than have to go to each of the admin systems and change that logo individually. So again, you're trying to maybe plan on change as a feature and not a bug. You're trying to abstract some of the things away to kind of separate them so that you have some ownership on the teams. You've got some you've got some, again, separate technology capabilities that integrate nicely. But if something goes down, it doesn't completely blow anything up. So from the IT side, that's one of the things we're working on in 2022 is structuring the teams and separating those capabilities cleanly in a way that you can, again, begin to do that. So we've got components of that in place. The next-gen platform we had talked about just a minute earlier. That is one way that we've done that with a couple of our products. We want to do that with the rest of our business units and the rest of the products that we have at Mutual of Omaha. Again, trying to make our lives easier down the line, make it more flexible for how we interact with customers, how they interact with us, and so on. So you've got the growth, you've got that kind of separation, and then we've got how do we work more effectively within IT as well. So we've got some items, we've called them big rocks, because if you can deliver on them, they are things that are in the way of making both the IT strategy and the business strategy work better or work faster. So we've got 5 big rocks that we're working on. Some of them being one of them being the new platform, one of them being a better integration strategy for those components that I had described. One of them being how do we better communicate with our customers, manage their preferences, think about them as a single entity rather than multiple policyholders, for example. One of them being how do we make our distributors' lives easier, and how do we better manage the distributors themselves, so from a commission standpoint, from a licensing and appointment standpoint. So those are the 5. Again, you've got 2 focused on the producers. Those are super important to us in how we reach the customers. And you've got 3 focused on how do I improve that customer experience and set us up for success down the line.
Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about the next generation insurance platform. I mean, what is it exactly? What are its major components, and what will it do?
Yeah, so we've been somewhat public about this, but I would love to tell you more about it because it is pretty exciting. So the next-gen platform is a cloud-based, API-enabled, end-to-end insurance customer experience. So everything from the marketing, the application process, the underwriting process, all the way through claims. So one of the main components that we've been relatively public about is we worked with a company called Socotra. They've been doing our policy administration platform for that next-gen platform. We have a disability income product on it. We've got another one that'll be launching sometime in the next couple of months. And they are, again, maybe the hub that kind of makes that work. So if you have heard Dan Woods, he's the CEO of Socotra, speak about what his model is, right? He's got a theory that best of breed that has taken over in nearly every other industry is also going to take hold in insurance too. So he's like, we do policy administration. We do that with APIs. Here's our public documentation. If you want us to do underwriting, I mean, here's a basic underwriting component, but that's not really what we do best. If you want us to do claims, here's how we would administer it, but that's really not what we do best. We are in the business of keeping track of your policies, whether they've paid premium, but we don't collect the premiums. We're just in business of keeping track of them, and then enabling you as the carrier to connect via our platform, via API, and then do all the other things that you want to create. So you're going to want to create a claim system that works for both your customers, your producers, and your internal associates. And he said that's probably not Socotra that does that best. That's probably some other system. So for a while on disability income, we did handle that manually. Since then, we've put a newer platform in place to be able to connect those pieces together. On the application side, we built our own. We said, hey, we want to manage the e-application ourselves so that we can do both a customer experience and a shared producer customer experience. So producer can fill out a part, and then they can fill that out with the customer in mind. We didn't see anything in the market, so we built that ourselves. Since then, we've also integrated with a couple of other external carriers in things that would have taken us, maybe 12 months or more. We've been able to do in something like 12 weeks with a team that's about half the size of what we would have required before. So we are super excited about the next-gen platform to be able to do that. And now, while we've got Socotra in place, Socotra would tell you there's policy types that they don't do offhand today. And so they're like, well, if we want to be the policy administration component, but if we don't have that for us, you can use the rest of the components along the way. We could reuse that e-application. We can reuse that claim system, but we might use another policy administration platform other than Socotra that connects in. Again, that's the thing that we're really trying to build is how do I build for that flexibility in the future and not necessarily for the rigidity of the requirements documents that we used to work for in the past.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see a kind of a renaissance of best of breed because we, in the industry, we went through we went from being homegrown to going to essentially a best of breed strategy to going to the integrated suite of core systems. So it's very interesting how APIs and the whole microservices economy, if you want to call it that, is enabling that approach and getting results. So I wonder as you attempt to do these things, what challenges you might face, ranging from procurement to staffing, partner management, integration, in order to make the next gen platform a success.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I suppose that is one of the other main components of things we're working on in 2022 is how do we bring the talent along to be able to do that, right? So we'll focus on them for just a second because that is a major component of where we're heading. So when we started the tech modernization journey a little more than 2 years ago, one of the things we wanted to do is give our associates the chance to upskill. So we've spent a fair amount of time and money and frankly, building up programs to be able to get them where they need to go. So to give them the skills of, hey, here's what an API is. Here's how you work with. We've been public about our chosen partner in MuleSoft. We use AWS as our cloud platform. Here's how you build on AWS. Here's how you would deploy services that would be Mutual of Omaha compliant with regard to security, with regard to data storage, and so on. So we've done a fair amount of that over the last couple of years, and are going to continue to do that. But like the rest of the industry, I mean, we've seen turnover tick up. It's not at a concerning level, but certainly more than we've had in the past. So
what do you think is
the Great Resignation is real.
Yeah. I was going to ask you. Sorry for interrupting. I was going to ask you what you think is driving that, and whether it is part of the Great Resignation as it's being called.
So, I mean, I think part of it is for us. I guess I'll talk about this for just a minute. Our headquarters is in Omaha, Nebraska, and up until a couple of years ago, the expectation was that if you were going to work for Mutual of Omaha, you would live in the Omaha area. Now we did have a couple of other offices that were a little smaller. We did have a few folks that worked permanently remote. But for the most part, if you were going to work for Mutual of Omaha, you had to be in Omaha, Nebraska.
Right.
We have since changed that stance. We're fully hybrid from here on out. So
I'm wondering.
that's certainly opened up who we can recruit to. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do the prospects want these days? What are they saying to you about their expectations?
Yeah, they are. Hey, I don't mind coming in either a couple of times a week if they live in the Omaha area, or a couple of times a year if they don't, to see their coworkers in person. But the expectation is they really enjoy working from home. I mean, frankly, I do too. It's nice to come in and see your coworkers, but it's also nice to roll out of bed, grab a cup of coffee, and then join that meeting at 8:00.
Sure.
So there are some perks both ways, and we're fully committed to hybrid. We're building a new office building in downtown Omaha that's about half the square footage. So we expect probably 40% of the Omaha associates to be in that building on any given day. It's going to be much more collaborative space than cubicles, and knowing that that's going to be our strategy going forward. Again, that's one of the things that I think has changed for us. The Great Resignation, right, is people can work from anywhere for most companies, and we've seen that go both ways, right? We've seen folks leave because they can't work for another company somewhere else, but we've also been able to recruit folks that we probably otherwise couldn't have if we had required them to move to Omaha. So it's been a positive for us overall, but certainly we have lost some folks, again, due to that, the ability to work remotely.
Yeah, well, how's it gone? I've spoken to so many carrier people who have said that when they were hit with the lockdowns, when the pandemic the pandemic response first got rolling, and they, like you, many of them have had a very aggressive transformation agenda. They were facing all these major initiatives, and suddenly they had to do it on a remote basis. And yet, I would say universally, what they found was they could do it just fine.
Yeah, you can count us in that universal group. So we had, I think the thing that would have held us back significantly before was we had an on-prem hardwired phone system up until 2019, I think is when we finally got rid of all of them. So we transitioned to Amazon Connect. We, again, shared that a couple of times with various parties. That's kind of our call center platform. So if you call a Mutual of Omaha 800 number, you're going to get routed through an Amazon Connect call center somewhere, and then you're gonna talk to a rep who again used to be in Omaha just because that was the expectation, but today could be anywhere across the United States. So that ability to be able to just again say, don't come into the office, remote into the Mutual of Omaha servers and connect like you normally would, was a great win for us. I mean, that literally happened over a weekend. We got everybody the things that they needed to be able to do exactly that. I think most of the rest of us who are either handling meetings all day, I mean, it came a little different to deal with a Teams or a camera on a regular basis rather than in person. But we found, again, to be just as effective at home as in person. Now, there are some aspects that you miss. There's some energy that you can't seem to recreate quite yet through a camera. There is something to be able to see your coworkers, or even the delay, the slight delay from sending things through the internet to a screen somewhere else. You can't quite overcome that yet with sitting next to somebody and kind of riffing off of ideas. And the whiteboarding tool, I think that is one thing that universally we all seem to miss. Of like, sure, there are plenty of whiteboarding tools that we've tried, but nothing quite beats an actual whiteboard and a marker and standing up there and kind of riffing on, hey, what are we going to do next? Oh, no, let's erase that and let's start over and maybe pivot that this way. Okay, what about this other component and so on, right? Like, there are a few things that, again, we think that will certainly benefit from a future hybrid world rather than the remote-only world that we've kind of found ourselves in for the last couple of years.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. You know, I've been working remotely since 2002, And I relish the opportunities to get out in the field and mix with people in person. There's really no substitute. So I would imagine then, as things are opening up, you're encouraging employees to come in, and you're kind of activating that hybrid strategy.
I heard one of my coworkers say this the other day, and I loved it. So you've got the Yogi Berra line where it's like, it's too crowded, nobody goes there anymore. We've got kind of the reverse problem at the office, right? There's nobody there, so nobody goes there anymore. Just this week, though, I've started to see a few more folks in the office, and like, oh man, it's so nice to see a few other friendly faces around. So I think as we'll open up, you'll get kind of the reputation of, oh, like Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are pretty busy in the office. So I'm going to start heading in on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays so I can see a few other folks, and that'll kind of build some momentum. Now, certainly it's to the point that we've had over the last few minutes, it's not going to be like it was where everybody was expected to be in the office every day, but I think you're going to build some momentum. Certainly we will at Mutual of Omaha, and I would assume most other companies are going to end up in that same spot.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Human contact, but also a more streamlined way of working. That's how I look at it. You know, it's without interruptions.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Focused on your job. So Brian, let me bring you back to the technology discussion. The next gen platform is about customer experience, but data plays an important role in making that work. So how do the data considerations loom in terms of the creation and operation of the next gen platform?
Yeah, that's great. So I already mentioned the API integration. So when you're passing data in between multiple business capabilities, in the past we might have used, we might have chosen a monolithic system so you didn't have to pass data, or you might have said, like, I want an end-to-end thing that does everything for us, which to the point we had earlier about the best of breed, like that kind of flies in the face of that strategy. So, well, that's probably not going to work. We might have used a overnight batch process, which again kind of conflicts with the immediacy of customer experience that we've seen in the past. So that's probably not going to work. So API integration and events, either way, if you're using events to kind of do asynchronous integration where it's like, well, all I'm waiting for is somebody to tell me the policy's approved and then I'll kick it off. Or, again, if I need a real-time response, I'm using an API to go back and forth. Like, those are the ways that we're handling the data in between those capabilities, again, to build ultimately for that best customer experience. When I mentioned flexibility, so think about maybe underwriting data as one way of doing that. So underwriters have worked for a long time with originally paper documents, and now PDF or faxed versions of those documents. You've got electronic medical records that have obviously taken hold over the last 5 years and have really accelerated over the last couple. And the interoperability of those medical records has been a challenge that seems to be breaking down too. So building in a way that you could get that data into the platform and expecting that to come in different formats and different ways and in probably much larger quantities than we would have been familiar with in the past is again one of the things we're trying to build with that next gen platform. Now, of the data that we're storing and capturing, certainly we're doing all this stuff that we used to do, right? You still got policy number, you've still got customer name, customer address, you've got their premium amount, and so on. But we've also got even more data about the customer experience generally, and we've tried to be more thoughtful about capturing those pieces. So things like if they're filling out an application, how much time are they spending on this question or on this screen, so that you can either change the way the question is asked, for example, or simplify the question itself, or maybe there's another way of getting that particular data and you don't have to ask the customer at all. So we're starting to think more about how do I capture elements of the customer experience, store that, and then analyze it. So we're like maybe a few others in the industry. One of the fun things about life and health insurance is we're maybe slightly behind even the property and casualty insurance folks in thinking about how to use big data or how to use machine learning to help make operational decisions. So we've certainly had data scientists around here for the better part of 10 years. We've used them as maybe something closer to like super advanced analysts in the past. So they're doing things like taking the data set and saying, well, what can I learn from this data set that I didn't already know? And then let me make big business decisions off of it. We're trying to translate the big business decisions into something like, well, how can I do this in real time, right? So if I learn something about a customer's maybe health as they're going through an application, how do I immediately follow that up with a question directly to the customer so I don't have to come back a week later after an underwriter's had a chance to look at it to ask them that question? So if there's something I can do with machine learning in real time, that's certainly a win for the customer. They're already in the midst of filling out the process. That's a win for the underwriting team. So they don't have to wait that lag time of looking at the data themselves and then coming back. So we're trying to think about where are the places that you can use that new data that we're collecting and begin to insert that into the customer experience without having to, again, spend specific analyzing time down the line and then make a decision after the fact. And that's a little bit new for us. I wouldn't say it's new for data science generally, or I wouldn't say that's new necessarily for maybe the insurance industry. Property and casualty, again, is maybe a bit further ahead than the life and health folks. But that is something that's fun, and one thing that we've been focusing our data scientists on is how do we operationalize some of the things that they're building? Like, how can we turn that into a real-time customer experience rather than a decision we've got to make down the line? And that's been a fun challenge to think about, and certainly enabled by the next-gen platform. You wouldn't be able to do that with a on-prem server base. Like, you're only able to do that because of the computing power and speed available in the cloud.
Brian, could you share with us the overall status? If you had to give a status report of where the Next Gen Platform initiative was, what would you say relative to when you started, what you've accomplished so far, and what are some of the main components that still lie ahead?
So again, we've got one product live with customers. We've got another product that's coming out in the next month or two. So from an end-to-end standpoint, it's live. It works. We've been happy with the performance of it. Again, I mentioned maybe the integration story of 12 months to 12 weeks, and that's where we're headed. Right? We've got ambitions for each of the business units to build one of their products. So they have multiple products under each business unit. One of their products on the Next Gen platform in the next 18 months. That's ambitious for folks that have been, again, building on the mainframe for 20, 30 years. Certainly we know how to do that. If a business unit comes to the IT teams and they say, hey, I want a new product, the IT team says, I know how to do that. I know how to do that on the mainframe. Give me 24 months. Give me, $3 to $4 million, and we'll get it done for you. We're certainly trying to take that time down significantly, and that spend down significantly. But it does take some the talent upskilling to be able to do that, to say, hey, we know you used to do this in mainframe. Here's how you would do this on the next-gen platform. There are certainly some components. As I mentioned, Socotra doesn't administer all types of business that are maybe missing as we move into those new types of products, or the claim system that we have for disability income is probably not going to work for a life insurance customer. So we've got to find a life insurance claims way of administering claims. I guess it doesn't necessarily need to be a vendor. You did ask about that earlier, and there's a couple of different types of vendors. You've got the legacy folks that are in the group of, hey, let me use the land and expand maybe model. And then you've got the folks who are maybe more Socotra-like or Stripe-like, if you're familiar with them, of this is our API, this is our product, here's how you use it, knock yourself out. We'll charge you like per transaction in the case of Stripe. And as you try and find vendors that fit more of that second model, within the insurtech space, we would love to see more of them. So I suppose if you're considering making a startup, either Anthony or any of the viewers or listeners to the podcast today, we would love you to make a API-enabled component of an insurance policy lifecycle, whether that is, again, application, whether that is something like a claim system, whether that is billing, payments, policy output, so on. We're looking for folks like that to bring onto the next-gen platform to serve the various products that we have. We know that probably the main task that we'll have going forward is going to be the integration of various vendors to be able to create that customer experience that, frankly, we want to build, and also that they're demanding of us as a 21st century insurance company.
Yeah, well, it seems very much
plenty of work to do, but
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying it seems very much that, in the past we might have had a way of operating where we think about what the technology can do and then we go out and build it. And like you said in your earlier remarks, insurance companies were kind of in a position to dictate that experience. And the way you're talking to me today, it sounds like you're very much engaged in a very open approach to what the available technology has to offer, and that you're designing these systems from the outside in. You're asking what needs to be done, what do people expect, and then you're building back from that.
Yeah, exactly. And we would love to find vendors that would help us do that, right? Like, we don't want to have to build everything ourselves. That takes a long time. It ends up being a little bit more fragile that way. Just because we haven't, like, I give the example of Stripe, for example. Like, you're not going to build a payment processor for Mutual of Omaha that's better than something that Stripe could build. Like, that's their whole thing, right? Their whole thing is we take payments via API. We're not going to beat an entire company that does that. So the goal, if the goal is to create a ideal customer experience for the moments that matter, like, you're going to want to try and find either best of breed, or you're going to say, man, we've really got the expertise here, and that's the things that we're going to start having to have fun debates about of, we've got to be the experts on the things that we want to do really well, and so you're going to have to either put more people on those things that really matter to us as either a strategic imperative or something that's a differentiator for us as compared to the rest of the market, or you're going to find a vendor to help you do it. But you're going to need that kind of thought for different components along the way. So payments is one. I keep poking at that one. Like, that's a commodity, right? Probably not something that we would want to build. A customer doesn't really they're not really picking an insurance company based on how they take their payments. They're picking an insurance company either based on name, based on ease of how can I get that policy, based on the claims experience if they've had a chance to work with you before or if they've heard from others. So there's moments, again, that matter more to customers than others, and that's where we want to start to begin to focus our efforts and then integrate with folks who can help us make the rest of the experience seamless and easy.
Well, toward those goals, if you had to identify 3 indispensable initiatives, what would they be?
That talent one, for sure, right? Without the people that we have at Mutual of Omaha, being able to do that integration, being able to have that vision of what the technology can do and creatively solve both the technical challenges and frankly, the curiosity about making that customer experience ideal. Certainly that's one indispensable item that I would definitely not want to get rid of. Second one is that maybe shift to the cloud for the ease of integration and the data that it provides. That's going to be so important to us going forward. Again, not only about doing the basic things that an insurance company must do, but about understanding that customer experience. And the third one, though, it is going to be, I think, the real trick that we're coming to find out is, how do we better work with our distributors? And again, whether that is making better selections on the direct-to-consumer piece, or whether that's better working with the folks who are currently out there selling our products, or there's plenty of new ways to that have been tried to sell insurance and finding ways to partner with them. We think, I mean, if you just look at the life insurance coverage stats of people that say that they want or need life insurance as compared to the people that own it, there's a big gap there. And part of that gap is cost. So technology would certainly help bring down some of that cost. Part of that is access. Part of that is education. And we think there's plenty of opportunity for not only us, but other insurance carriers in the market to be able to close that gap through new and creative ways of distribution, as well as making it easier for your current partners to do the business that they're already trying to bring your way.
Thank you for joining us for the Life Accelerated podcast, undertaken by Insurance Innovation Reporter in partnership with Equisoft. For more relevant content to help you achieve digital transformation, please visit equisoft.com/lifeaccelerated.